everyone, it's Lindey. Welcome back to my channel. So I am an eBay seller that likes to sell items in the health and beauty categories. This means that I sell a lot of things such as cosmetics and personal care like deodorant. If you're brand new to my channel, I have lots of different videos talking about tactics of selling these kind of items. I show items that I source and then list, and then I also have numerous videos talking about shipping these kinds of items. One of the most frequent questions I get about shipping these kind of items is how to handle shipping items that can melt. So I've done videos where I talk about how I ship items that can leak during transit and the proper precautions that you should make when shipping these kind of items and the rules to abide by with the United States Postal Service. But I've recently realized that I have never done a dedicated video talking specifically about shipping items that can melt, such as lipsticks or formed gel type products when it starts getting hot outside. And we are in the heart of May right now. That means a lot of areas are really starting to heat up for summer. So I figured this was a perfect opportunity to talk about how I ship things like cosmetics or personal care items that can melt before they get to your buyer. So not only am I going to talk about and actually show you how I ship these kind of items, but I'm also going to give you some tips on how to handle some customer service situations where you might unfortunately have something arrive to the buyer and it leaked everywhere. Because it's happened to me, it can happen to anybody, even when you take all of the necessary precautions. And so you should know the proper way to handle them to make sure that your buyer is happy. Because believe it or not, having items melt in the mail is something that's very, very common. There is a reason why huge companies such as Amazon will refuse to store meltable items in their warehouses during certain months. Because that's exactly what happens. If you are an Amazon FBA seller, you might already know that between the months of May to October, Amazon tells you that you have to pull everything out of your inventory that is a meltable product because their warehouses can reach upwards of 120 degrees in the summer. So for Amazon, it's not necessarily about shipping products that can melt, but it's also about storing them. So if you're a smaller seller like me and you don't have a giant warehouse that you need to worry about cooling during the summertime, your main concern is just simply shipping the item and making sure that it doesn't melt before it gets to the buyer, which is kind of hard to do because once the package leaves your hands, you cannot control how the post office is storing your package or where the delivery person is placing the package and how long it takes your buyer to actually get it into their climate-controlled home. So I'm sure after hearing me say all of that, the first thing that you need to realize is that when you ship items that can melt during the hottest months of the year, it does come with risk. Because I'm going to tell you how exactly I ship these kind of items, but of course, there is no guarantee that you won't still have items arrive to the buyer completely melted. For this reason, sometimes I will specifically hold off on listing certain kind of items during the hottest months of the year, and I'll wait until fall comes around. That way I don't have to worry so much about having a bunch of refunds or open returns for damaged merchandise. For instance, I might try to refrain from listing all of my solid lipsticks during these coming months, and I'll just list the liquids instead. So I'll have bags upon bags of lipsticks that end up getting listed in October, although I do personally have a lot of solid lipsticks that just recently got listed. So looks like I'm taking a real gamble this summer. That's what I do. I live life on the edge. Because here's the thing. If there are a lot of sellers out there that have the mindset that they don't want to sell items that can melt, that means that less of those items will be listed. So if you are one of those sellers that is willing to take that risk, then you can corner the market on certain types of items during this season. All right, so let's talk about how I personally ship anything that can potentially melt. So for me, that means that I have a 4-step process. Step number 1 is I always bag items that can leak. And I have learned this from a major boo-boo that I personally had. And that's why I say sometimes it's really good to actually make mistakes, because when you make a mistake, and you feel really bad about it, you try extra hard to not let that mistake happen again. So a few years ago, I shipped a foundation stick to a buyer and I did not bag it. And it happened to melt during transit, and the buyer was less than thrilled when they received their package, opened it up, and liquid foundation dribbled all over everything. She sent me pictures that she had liquid foundation on the white t-shirt she was wearing. There was liquid foundation on the carpet. Yeah, I screwed up royally not putting that stick foundation in a bag because I did everything that I thought I needed to do at the time, but didn't think to bag the thing. So by the time the stick foundation had got to her, unfortunately, all of the precautions that I had taken in that circumstance wasn't enough. She opens the package, the stick foundation had melted, and it went everywhere. Luckily for me, she was kind enough to just take a refund for the product because she realized that those things can happen. But the fact that it got on her white t-shirt and her carpet, she could have demanded that I give her a substantial amount of money for damages. Because even if she did demand money for damages from me, such as a carpet cleaning fee or replacement of her t-shirt, because I mean, come on, have you ever got makeup on your clothes before? That stuff don't come out easy, especially when your t-shirt is bright white, which of course hers was because that's my luck. She would have had to have taken me to civil court because I don't think eBay is going to, pull extra money out of my account if I've already refunded her in full. She would have had to have taken me to civil court and fought me for these things. But she most definitely would have left me a negative feedback if she wasn't so kind. So I realized I got lucky that time, so I was not going to make that same mistake again. I always bag anything that can leak to prevent that kind of situation from happening again. So now this does not have to be an expensive step. I always show in my shipping videos that I bag everything in just clear baggies that I get from Walmart. They're called twist tie bags, and you can find them in the same aisle as Ziploc bags. You can get a box of 100 for around $3. I do get people asking if they need to have a suffocation warning on them. If you are sending clear bags into Amazon FBA, they do ask that you have a suffocation label somewhere on those clear bags, but you don't necessarily have to worry about that for eBay. And I also don't worry about the threat of children getting the clear bag because usually whenever I am packaging items in those clear bags, I am tying it off in a knot. So someone has to actually rip the bag open in order to get their product out. And so there's not really a huge risk of suffocation when the bag is completely destroyed removing the product. So first step in my 4-step process is bagging the item. The next step is insulation. So if you've seen my other shipping videos, which I will make sure to link a full playlist of all of the shipping videos on my YouTube channel down in the video description, I will always ship my items in either a bubble mailer or a very small box. I use a lot more boxes during the summertime because I like to ship things like cosmetics in boxes where I can fully insulate them during the hot summer months to try to prevent them from leaking. I also really like these small boxes because they are not much more expensive than a standard bubble mailer. Usually whenever I get these 6-inch by 4-inch by 3-inch boxes, I get them in quantities of 200, and the price usually ranges from around $50 to $80 for 200 boxes. So the box itself is the first layer of protection to insulate the product, and then the next thing I do is I make sure to generously wrap it in packaging paper. So that means that we have the item bagged, wrapped in paper, and then put inside of a box. And usually that is enough insulation to keep a lot of the heat out. It's not going to prevent all of the heat from staying out, but it's going to help better than just sticking it in a bubble mailer. The third step that I do is I write on the label, "No sunlight, please," followed by a smiley face. I've looked online for stickers that are a no sunlight alert sticker. I checked on both Amazon and eBay and I was having trouble finding any. So if you're an Etsy seller and you create your own products, a no sunlight sticker would be a really good idea because sellers like me that want to alert the postal carriers from putting packages out in sunlight, it would save me a lot of time just being able to slap a sticker on versus having to handwrite it every single time. Because that's exactly what this note is for. This note is for the postal carriers to realize that something inside needs to not have direct sunlight. And hopefully having that note on there will keep the postal carrier from leaving the package in direct sunlight and increasing the likelihood that the contents inside can melt. And then the fourth step in my shipping process is prayer. Please, 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 please. No, seriously, because realistically, we can't control how hot the destination is going to be, how long packages are going to sit out in the heat, and you're essentially taking a gamble anytime you ship something that can melt, even when it's not the hottest month of the year. So be prepared to not always be so lucky. Now, you might have thought that one of my steps might include something like an ice pack or some dry ice, but honestly, that is such an inconvenient step, it might not be necessary. That just adds a lot of extra weight and additional cost to your business. The only time you might actually want to include something like that is if you're selling something that's worth a substantial amount of money. And if I'm selling something that's worth a substantial amount of money, I'll just wait for the cooler months so that I don't have to worry about the additional risk of having to refund a buyer that paid me a lot of money for something that arrived completely melted. So before I go into talking about handling customer service issues, if there's a problem that arises from a melted product, I do want to thank the sponsor of today's video. Wholesale Ninjas has been a partner of my YouTube channel for well over a year and a half now, because they are my favorite source of merchandise for my eBay store. Not only is Wholesale Ninjas my favorite source of health and beauty and personal care items, but they are by far the best supplier that I've ever sourced with when it comes to cosmetics. They have the absolute best prices around, and all of their cosmetics aren't covered in stickers. There has been times where I have sourced cosmetics with liquidation companies, and I get a box of cosmetics just encased in stickers. So not only would I have to sit there and gingerly remove multiple stickers from this small packaging, but the packaging ends up getting damaged after I remove the stickers, because usually packaging for cosmetics consists of some paper or cardboard, so you end up pulling the stickers off and the packaging is totally damaged underneath. But with Wholesale Ninjas, I can get the box, open it up, and start listing right away. There's little to no prep in order to do that. Because they are sponsoring today's video, I do have a coupon code for them. The code is Lindey25, and it gets you $25 off of anything on the Wholesale Ninjas website. I will make sure to link the coupon code and some of my favorite lots on their site down in the video description below. Thank you again to Wholesale Ninjas for sponsoring today's video, and I appreciate all of you being so supportive to my sponsors, because it's sponsors like Wholesale Ninjas that allows me to bring regular, consistent content to my YouTube channel. Okay, let's talk about how to properly handle a customer service issue if something does arrive completely melted to your buyer. Because I know that some sellers out there might have the very first instinct to say that it should be a postage claim in regarding a damaged package, and it shouldn't come out of your pocket as the seller because it's not really your fault that the item melted. Because you know that when the item left your hands, the item was intact, and so it's not your fault that it melted. It might be negligence on behalf of the delivery person. It might be the fault of your buyer just simply leaving the package out in the sun too long. But really, that's the wrong mindset to have. As a seller, it's our responsibility to make sure that we are properly packaging items in ways that the item arrives safely to the buyer. So unless the package was completely trashed upon delivery, if the product melts before it arrives to the buyer, that's our fault as the seller because we didn't properly package the item, or it's a package that we as a seller shouldn't have been selling due to heat risk. So it is my suggestion, if an item arrives completely melted to a buyer and they have photographic evidence that it is melted, that you as a seller should offer to refund them in full. You may disagree with me, but that is my opinion, and that is how I personally try to handle the situation. Because more often than not, the cost of refunding the buyer and keeping them happy is worth protecting my feedback. And I do not think it's a good idea to demand them to return it in order to get their refund, because that can be an item arrived damaged or defected, and you as a seller will have to also pay a shipping label in addition to refunding them for the damaged product. So in this circumstance, I would just say refund the buyer and apologize. Don't worry about them returning it and just eat the cost. So now for this reason alone, this might deter you from wanting to sell items that can melt during the hottest months of the year. But I personally think with the proper packaging precautions that it's a risk worth taking in order to keep your sales of these items consistent year round. Make sure to be polite if a buyer contacts you, even if they're really, really upset. And please refrain from putting blame on the buyer for maybe leaving the package outside a little too long. It's these kind of circumstances. I don't necessarily think that the buyer would purposefully damage the product in order to get their refund, because most of the time, if a product is melted, they can't use it anyway. So there's no reason for them to scam you into getting a refund, because they'll get their money back, but the product is completely damaged and unusable. So I think in most circumstances, a buyer would want to not let the package melt. They wouldn't just let it be damaged in order to get a refund. So if the item does melt, do take the buyer's words for it, especially if they have a photo proving it, and do your best to take care of them and refund them. Don't make them go through a postage claim. You as a seller can try to do the claim for them since you're the one that purchased the shipping label, but the likelihood that a postage carrier would grant you a claim for a melted product is very, very unlikely. So now I want to hear from you down in the comment section. Have you had a really horrible circumstance where you had a product melt? What's your story? Let me know. Because I do think that we can all learn from each other's mistakes. And if you think that there's an extra step that I have not put in my shipping process, I am always willing to learn better ways of doing things. So let me know down in the comments below. If you like this video, please do make sure to give it a thumbs up. Please remember to subscribe before you leave if you haven't already, and ring the notification bell. That way you're notified whenever I post a new video. And don't forget to check the video description down below. I will put a lot of useful information in there. Thank you guys again so much for watching. I will see you with my next video. Bye-bye.